Standing in my sister's bridal suite, watching her panic because her maid of honor had just revealed the truth about her perfect life, I felt a satisfaction I had waited 28 years to experience. For my entire existence, I had been the forgotten daughter, while my sister Brittany was the golden child who could do no wrong. Today was supposed to be her perfect wedding day. But I had been planning this moment for years. And finally, all her lies were about to catch up with her right in front of 200 guests. Before I tell you this story, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from around the world. Hit that like button and subscribe for more revenge stories that will leave you speechless. Trust me, you need to hear how I finally got the last laugh after decades of being treated like I was invisible while my sister lived like a princess. Growing up in the Patterson household meant understanding your place from day one, and mine was always second. My parents, David and Linda, made it crystal clear that Brittany was their pride and joy, while I was more like an afterthought they had to tolerate. When we were 7 years old, Brittany wanted to take ballet lessons, so our parents immediately enrolled her in the most expensive dance academy in town, complete with custom tutus and private coaching sessions. When I asked if I could try soccer, my father laughed and said sports were too rough for girls, even though he spent every weekend cheering at Brittany's dance competitions. The pattern continued through every aspect of our childhood. Brittany got the bigger bedroom, the latest toys, and all the attention she could ever want. When she decided she wanted to learn violin at age 10, my parents bought her a professional-grade instrument and paid for lessons with the symphony's first chair violinist. When I showed interest in art and asked for painting supplies, my mother bought me a $5 watercolor set from the drugstore and told me to be grateful. Academic achievements meant nothing if you were not Brittany. I consistently earned straight A grades while maintaining perfect attendance, but dinner table conversations always focused on Brittany's B- report cards and how proud my parents were of her improvement. When I won the school spelling bee 3 years in a row, the trophies went on a shelf in my bedroom where nobody could see them. When Brittany finally managed to spell her own name correctly in cursive, my parents threw a celebration dinner and called all the relatives to share the good news. By high school, I had stopped expecting equal treatment and learned to fend for myself. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore to save money for college, knowing my parents would never help with my education expenses. They had already started a college fund for Brittany, even though her grades were barely passing, and she showed no interest in higher education beyond the social aspects. Brittany, meanwhile, had discovered boys and parties, which somehow made her even more fascinating to our parents. They saw her popularity as proof of her superior social skills and charisma. When she got suspended for skipping class to go to the beach with older boys, my parents blamed the school for being too strict. When I was elected student body treasurer for managing the school's budget flawlessly, they forgot to mention it to anyone. The discrimination extended to our extended family as well. Grandparents, aunts, and uncles all treated Brittany like a little celebrity, while I remained virtually invisible at family gatherings. Christmas morning was particularly painful, with Brittany receiving piles of expensive gifts while I got practical items like socks and school supplies. When relatives visited, they would spend hours asking Brittany about her interests and activities, then give me a polite nod before moving on. What hurt most was watching my parents beam with pride over Brittany's most basic accomplishments while completely ignoring my genuine achievements. When I graduated valedictorian, my parents attended the ceremony, but spent the entire reception talking to other parents about Brittany's upcoming prom dress shopping trip. When Brittany barely managed to graduate with a C average, they threw her a massive party and gave her a brand new car as a reward for working so hard. College applications revealed the true depth of their favoritism. Despite Brittany's poor grades and complete lack of extracurricular activities, my parents hired expensive tutors and college consultants to help her get into any university that would accept her. They spent thousands of dollars on application fees, prep courses, and campus visits for someone who had never cracked a book voluntarily. Meanwhile, I filled out all my own applications, wrote my own essays, and applied for every scholarship available because I knew I was on my own financially. The day acceptance letters arrived was both the best and worst day of my senior year. I had been accepted to my dream school with a full academic scholarship, while Brittany had been rejected from every university except a small party school known more for its social scene than academics. Instead of celebrating my achievement, my parents spent the day consoling Brittany and planning how to make her college experience as comfortable as possible despite the less prestigious setting. That summer before college, the contrast in treatment became even more stark. My parents took Brittany on elaborate shopping trips for her dorm room, buying her everything from designer bedding to a top-of-the-line laptop. They rented a truck to move her into her single room with a private bathroom, staying for 3 days to help her settle in. When my move-in day came, I loaded my few belongings into my old car and drove myself to school, carrying everything up 3 flights of stairs to my shared room with no help from anyone in my family. College became my escape from the toxic family dynamic, and I threw myself into my studies with determination that surprised even me. For the first time in my life, I was judged on my own merits without being compared to Brittany. I excelled academically, made genuine friendships, and discovered talents I never knew I possessed. I double majored in business and communications, graduated summa cum laude, and immediately landed a prestigious internship at a major marketing firm. Meanwhile, Brittany was flunking out of college after 2 semesters of nonstop partying. She had failed every class, except for an introduction to dance course, and had gotten into trouble with campus security multiple times for underage drinking and disrupting other students. Instead of holding her accountable, my parents blamed the school for being too challenging and the other students for being bad influences on their innocent daughter. They brought Brittany home and immediately began making excuses for her failures. She was too creative for traditional education, they claimed. She was sensitive and needed a more nurturing environment. They enrolled her in community college, hired tutors for her basic math and English courses, and continued to treat her like a victim of circumstances rather than the architect of her own problems. During this time, I was building a successful career and earning recognition for my innovative marketing campaigns. I had moved to New York City, rented my own apartment, and was quickly climbing the corporate ladder. But when I called home to share my achievements, the conversations always shifted to concerns about Brittany's emotional well-being and how difficult her life had become. The inequality in treatment became even more apparent during family visits. When I came home for holidays, my parents barely acknowledged my presence, focusing all their attention on making Brittany feel special and supported. They would spend hours discussing her community college classes as if she were pursuing a PhD at Harvard, while my actual career successes were dismissed with comments like, "That's nice, dear," before changing the subject. Brittany eventually managed to complete a 2-year associate degree in general studies, which my parents celebrated as if she had won a Nobel Prize. They threw a graduation party bigger than most weddings, inviting everyone they knew to celebrate their daughter's incredible academic achievement. When I had graduated from my prestigious university with highest honors, they had taken me to dinner at a chain restaurant and called it a day. The pattern continued as we entered our 20s. Brittany moved back home and took a part-time job at a local boutique where she spent most of her time gossiping with coworkers and taking selfies for social media. My parents supplemented her minimal income with generous monthly allowances and paid for everything from her car insurance to her manicures. They bought her a new wardrobe every season and treated her like she was doing them a favor by working 20 hours a week. I, meanwhile, was working 60-hour weeks, earning 6-figure salaries and building a reputation as one of the most promising young executives in my field. But my success seemed to make my family uncomfortable. During phone calls, they would quickly change the subject when I mentioned work achievements or professional recognition. They seemed to prefer talking about Brittany's social life and her various hobby attempts, from yoga instructor training to jewelry making classes that she never completed. The real turning point came when Brittany announced she was dating Marcus, a local guy she had met at a bar. My parents were instantly obsessed with this relationship, treating it like the most important development in family history. They invited Marcus to every family dinner, asked detailed questions about his job as a mechanic, and started hinting about marriage possibilities after only 3 months of dating. When I mentioned that I was seeing someone seriously, a successful attorney I had met through work, my parents showed polite interest for about 5 minutes before returning their focus to Brittany's relationship. They never asked to meet my boyfriend, never inquired about our future plans, and never showed any genuine interest in my personal life beyond basic pleasantries. Everything changed when Brittany got engaged after dating Marcus for just 8 months. The announcement was made at a family dinner with all the drama of a Hollywood production, complete with tears of joy from my parents and immediate planning discussions for what they called the wedding of the century. From that moment on, wedding planning consumed every conversation, every family gathering, and every available moment of my parents' time and attention. The budget they set for Brittany's wedding was more money than they had ever spent on me in my entire lifetime. They hired the most expensive wedding planner in the city, booked the fanciest venue in town, and began planning a celebration that would cost more than most people's annual salaries. Every detail had to be perfect for their precious daughter's special day. I watched in amazement as my parents threw money at every aspect of the wedding while continuing to treat me like an afterthought. When Brittany decided she wanted a custom-designed wedding dress, they flew her to New York City and hired a renowned designer to create something unique. When she wanted professional engagement photos, they hired the most sought-after photographer in the region and paid for multiple outfit changes and location shoots. The guest list grew to over 300 people, including distant relatives, family friends, and coworkers that Brittany barely knew. My parents sent expensive save-the-date cards 6 months in advance and began planning accommodations for out-of-town guests. They rented blocks of hotel rooms, arranged transportation, and planned welcome parties and farewell brunches to make the weekend extra special for everyone attending. Meanwhile, I was expected to participate in all the wedding planning activities while being treated like unpaid help rather than the sister of the bride. Brittany assigned me countless errands and tasks, from addressing invitations to researching vendors, all while making it clear that my opinions and suggestions were unwelcome. When I offered to help pay for any aspect of the wedding, my parents dismissed the offer, saying they had everything handled and did not need my contribution. The bachelorette party planning revealed just how little my family valued me. Brittany announced that she wanted a destination weekend in Las Vegas, complete with luxury accommodations, expensive dinners, and VIP club experiences. She invited 12 of her closest friends and cousins, planning activities that would cost each attendee over $1,000. When she mentioned that I would be attending as her maid of honor, I was shocked since she had never actually asked me to take on that role. It turned out that my parents had pressured her to include me in the wedding party, and she had reluctantly agreed to make me maid of honor to keep them happy. She made it clear that she would prefer to have one of her friends in that position, but family obligations required her to choose me. The entire conversation was humiliating, being told I was an unwanted participant in my own sister's wedding. The final months before the wedding were filled with increasingly elaborate plans and mounting expenses. My parents had completely emptied their savings account and taken out loans to pay for everything Brittany wanted. They bought her a complete trousseau, including honeymoon clothes, new luggage, and enough household items to stock a department store. They paid for hair and makeup trials, multiple dress fittings, and professional dance lessons so Brittany could perform a choreographed first dance with Marcus. During this entire period, I continued to excel in my career and had actually received a major promotion with a substantial salary increase. When I mentioned this achievement during a family dinner that was supposed to be about wedding planning, My father barely looked up from his notes about table arrangements. My success had become so irrelevant to them that they could not even pretend to care anymore. That was when I realized something important. All these years, I had been hoping for recognition, acceptance, and equal treatment from people who were never going to give it to me. But I had also been gathering information, watching their behavior, and learning things about my family that could be very useful under the right circumstances. See, while my parents had been focused entirely on making Brittany happy, I had been paying attention to details they thought nobody noticed. I knew about the credit card debt they were hiding from each other. I knew about the second mortgage they had taken on the house. I knew about Marcus's ex-girlfriend, who was still very much in the picture. And I knew about Brittany's own secrets that she thought were safely buried. The golden child had been living a lie for years, and her perfect wedding day was about to become the perfect opportunity for the truth to finally come out. 3 weeks before the wedding, I received a phone call that would change everything. It was from Casey, a girl who had been in Brittany's high school class, but had moved away for college. She was calling because she had heard about the upcoming wedding through social media and felt I should know something important about my sister's relationship with Marcus. It turned out that Brittany and Marcus had actually been dating for over 2 years, not the 8 months my family believed. They had been secretly involved while Marcus was still in a serious relationship with another woman named Amanda, who had no idea about the affair. Brittany had convinced Marcus to break up with Amanda and pretend their relationship was new, so my parents would not know she had been involved with a taken man. Casey had more information that made my stomach turn. During their secret relationship, Brittany had gotten pregnant and had quietly gotten an abortion without telling anyone in our family. She had borrowed money from several friends to pay for the procedure, promising to pay them back, but never following through. She had also been lying to my parents about her job performance, claiming she was up for a promotion when she had actually been written up multiple times for poor attendance and unprofessional behavior. The most shocking revelation was about the wedding expenses. Brittany had been using my parents' credit cards to make unauthorized purchases, adding thousands of dollars in extra costs that she claimed were necessary for the wedding. She had bought expensive jewelry, designer shoes, and luxury items for her honeymoon, all charged to accounts that my parents thought were being used only for approved wedding expenses. Armed with this information, I began my own investigation. I reached out to Amanda, who was heartbroken to learn the truth about Marcus and Brittany's relationship. She had suspected something was going on, but Marcus had convinced her she was being paranoid and insecure. She still had text messages from Marcus expressing his love and talking about their future together, sent during the same time period he was supposedly falling in love with my sister. I also contacted several of Brittany's former friends who had lent her money over the years. The pattern was always the same. Brittany would create some emergency situation, borrow money with promises to pay it back quickly, then disappear from their lives when repayment time came. She owed thousands of dollars to people who had trusted her, and many of them had been too embarrassed to pursue the debts. The final piece of evidence came from Brittany's employer. When I called pretending to be verifying employment for a loan application, I learned that she was actually on probation for stealing merchandise and had been caught multiple times taking items without paying. The only reason she had not been fired was because the store manager felt sorry for her and hoped she would improve her behavior. As the wedding day approached, I made my decision. My sister had spent her entire life being rewarded for bad behavior, while I had been ignored for doing everything right. My parents had enabled her dishonesty and irresponsibility while treating me like I was worthless. It was time for the truth to come out, and the wedding day would provide the perfect audience for some long overdue reality. I carefully planned my approach. During the maid of honor speech, which my parents had insisted I give, despite Brittany's obvious reluctance, I would present all the evidence I had gathered. I would read actual text messages between Marcus and Amanda, show financial records of Brittany's unauthorized spending, and reveal the truth about her employment situation and unpaid debts. The morning of the wedding, I felt calmer than I had in years. I had spent so long trying to earn love and recognition from people who were determined to withhold it. Today, I would finally stop playing by their rules and show them exactly who their golden child really was. Standing in that bridal suite, watching Brittany panic as her perfect day began to unravel, I realized this was not really about revenge. It was about truth, justice, and finally refusing to be complicit in a family dynamic that had damaged all of us. Brittany had never learned to be responsible because my parents had never held her accountable. Marcus had never learned to be honest because dishonesty had been rewarded. And my parents had never learned to value me because I had always been available to ignore. Today, all of that was going to change. The wedding ceremony proceeded as planned, with 200 guests witnessing what they thought would be the happiest day of Brittany's life. But when I stood up to give my maid of honor speech during the reception, I began by saying something that made the entire room go silent. Most people give speeches about love and commitment at weddings, but sometimes the most loving thing you can do is tell the truth. I spent the next 10 minutes laying out every detail of Brittany's deception. I read text messages from Marcus to Amanda, sent just days before the wedding. I showed financial records proving Brittany's theft from my parents. I revealed her employment issues, her unpaid debts, and her history of lying to everyone who had ever tried to help her. The room was completely silent, except for the sound of my parents crying and Brittany screaming denials that nobody believed. Marcus tried to leave, but Amanda was there with friends who blocked his exit. The guests sat in stunned silence as years of carefully constructed lies crumbled in real time. When I finished speaking, I set the microphone down and walked out of the reception hall. I had said everything I needed to say, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely free from the need to seek approval from people who were never going to give it. 6 months later, Brittany and Marcus's marriage had ended in divorce. My parents had finally seen their golden child for who she really was, and were struggling to rebuild their finances and their understanding of their family dynamic. Several of Brittany's creditors had begun legal proceedings to recover their money. As for me, I had been promoted again and was thriving in both my personal and professional life. I eventually rebuilt a limited relationship with my parents, but with clear boundaries about how I expected to be treated. Brittany and I have no contact, which has been a relief for both of us. The most important thing I learned from this experience is that sometimes you have to stop waiting for people to see your worth and start showing them the consequences of not valuing you. I spent 28 years hoping my family would love me the way they loved my sister. Once I stopped hoping and started acting, everything changed. Family loyalty should never require you to stay silent about abuse lies or injustice. Real love means wanting people to be their best selves, not enabling their worst behaviors. I finally learned that my worth was not determined by my family's opinion of me, and that truth is always more powerful than carefully maintained illusions. Have you ever been the scapegoat in your family while someone else was treated like they could do no wrong? What would you have done in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let me know if you think I went too far or if the truth needed to come out. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories that will leave you speechless. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they deserve better treatment than being someone's backup option. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you have the right to demand respect from the people in your life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's bad behavior, even if it means facing difficult consequences. Stay strong, know your worth, and never apologize for expecting to be treated with basic human dignity.